The Chicago River. 156 miles of history, commerce, and revolutionary engineering.
The river is an important asset to the city of Chicago and all the communities that front it. It was a traditional paddle river for indigenous tribes, and then it was re-engineered to be an industrial river. Now that the water-based industry is leaving, and there's lots of vacant industrial land along the river is advancing in a completely new vision, which is that of a recreational river.
My name's Nick Wesley, the Executive Director of Urban Rivers.
Urban Rivers is a Chicago-based organization committed to restoring the city's waterways. It has played an instrumental role in the future of the North Branch of the Chicago River and its relationship to humans and wildlife. Urban Rivers has transformed a section of the North Branch Canal into the Wild Mile, a series of floating ADA-accessible gardens and boardwalks open to the public. Located on the east side of Goose Island in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, the project is described as the world's first ever floating eco-park.
You know, our goal is to take kind of this existing infrastructure, this kind of corrugated steel walls, this, more or less empty of habitat river, and turn it into a more functioning ecosystem. So we add floating gardens, boardwalks, and other things like that to really recreate and emulate what a natural river ecosystem would be. 2016, we did a Kickstarter to do the first floating garden section. And then 2017, we actually installed it. It was like a 160-foot long one. And just after that, year after year, we just kind of kept adding more gardens, adding more features, and then eventually started working with the city on the actual boardwalk section of it.
The idea of creating the Wild Mile came about in 2014. It was centered around greening urban environments. Since then, Urban Rivers has partnered with several organizations to help achieve its goals. Some of these partners include the City of Chicago, Shed Aquarium, the Near North Unity Program, Neighborspace, Chicago Botanic Garden, and architecture firm Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill.
My name is Phil Enquist. I'm a former partner with the firm Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. Zachary D'Amato and Nick Wesley contacted me one day and asked if they could come in and share their idea. I just love this project. I think it stands for everything we're trying to do now. We're trying to green cities. We're trying to find a way to bring nature and humans together.
The City of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development began its collaboration with Urban Rivers in 2014.
The Wild Mile was actually first in a planning document in the early 2000s. So we brought it back in this particular plan, and the timing and the techniques were right to help actually implement that. We were interested in making sure that we could make it into a place that was open and free and clear for everybody, just like the lakefront.
When you look at the landscape of urban rivers throughout the world, especially ones that had really industrialized in like 1850 to 1930, they all kind of copy each other and they all have a very similar footprint. Moving goods through the rivers was really a prime driver for a lot of the city's growth. And so they all did the same things. They widened it, they dredged it, they dammed it, and then they straightened it. And so you're left with a very similar footprint of corrugated steel sheet pile walls, having it be devoid of actual wildlife, lined with industrial. We started using highways and other things like that, and the use of the river as like an economic driver of a city really kind of waned. And they left them with these big, giant infrastructure debts, if you will, where these areas that just really didn't have as much purpose as they once did. And so the ideal situation would be to rip out the seawalls and create a naturalized edge and normal kind of river condition. But in many places, that's not even possible. In those areas that you can't, this is kind of what I see as a solution for that, where you can take the existing infrastructure and add onto it and really build that ecological function within kind of a dense urban environment. The attraction here isn't that you can be near plants. You could do that other places. Not that you could be close to the river. We have, a beautiful river walk, but it's that you can be surrounded by wildlife.
While wildlife is thriving, so is the river's ecosystem. That's thanks in part to plant life and the presence of native species, both of which benefit from reduced nitrate levels. Reduced nitrate levels lower the chances of damaging algal blooms and improve water quality. The roots of the plants filter the water and create a nutrient-rich habitat for fish. Bass from as far away as the Skokie Lagoons have been documented at the Wild Mile.
I'm Stephen Meyer, and I live a few blocks that way. As soon as REI put the boat dock in, I've been coming here, so before the Wild Mile platforms got built.
Sometimes we'll send off our boats on the river, but most of the time we just come here to have fun.
We started going out on the river the year before any of the Wild Mile was built, and just to go downtown, see if how far we could row and stuff. And I don't remember seeing anything other than maybe a fish flop in the water once in a while. Geese, and maybe one red-eared slider turtle. Since then, we've seen the giant snapping turtles. Those showed up really quick. Muskrats, beaver, and different birds. It's a lot more species, a lot more things.
I think the Wild Mile is most popular with children. It's so exciting to see children come and visit, run up and down the walkway, engage with the wildlife, see the freshwater mussels, look for the Chonkosaurus snapping turtle. People love to walk their dogs here. It's suddenly just a wonderful amenity, and it's become a neighborhood park.
All of these gardens are built and planted by volunteers and community members. So that's one of the most interesting things is this park is entirely built together and even bolted together by people who kind of come out and do this.
There's a role here with Urban Rivers and the Wild Mile to educate Chicagoans and visitors to the ecological dimensions of this project.
The Wild Mile could someday set the standard for cities around the globe looking to rethink their waterways and find new ways to green urban spaces.
It's intended to be a full mile long from Division to North Avenue. It's on its way, so the Wild Mile will be, if you could envision this as a mile-long central park for this high-density neighborhood.
I think the thing that I find the most fun about this isn't necessarily the park itself, but the inception of it. It was something that wasn't a top-down planned development or something like that. It's something that really kind of emerged organically from just a lot of time and energy spent trying to make it a reality. And I think for other people who have projects or ideas, to be able to look at something like this and then try their own hand at it, even if it's in a completely different field, I think that's really the most interesting aspect to me. Hopefully seeing how other cities look at this and go, oh, if Chicago could do it, we could do it, and do something else.
The Wild Mile project, as far as I know, is a one-of-a-kind project. There is nothing else like this that exists in the United States. A floating wetland garden that eventually will be a mile long. It's a floating garden. I mean, where does that exist?